KOMO News Radio. Everything you need to know. Now, Newsline PM with Ken Schramm.
Got you here at 6 minutes past the hour of 1 o'clock on this Friday afternoon, heading into a seafair weekend. Weather Wizards got it wrong. These clouds are not dissipating anytime soon. Thank you for joining me here on Newsline PM. Appreciate that a lot. I read this story this morning. I got into work. I was in really early today. And I'm sitting down and I read this story, and it's like I'm thinking we live in one whacked out world. This is just beyond any level of comprehension. It really is. There was this guy in his mid-20s riding his bike on East Marginal Way early this morning. Some car came up behind him and hit him from behind. Just smashed into him. Car didn't stop, but there was a witness who followed the vehicle and was able to get the license plate number. You know why he was able to get, or she was able to get the license plate number? Because the driver of the car that hit the bicyclist and then took off stopped at a fast food restaurant. It's like, I just hit a bicyclist. I guess I need some protein. I need some carbs. I'm thirsty. I think I'll pull into the drive-thru up here and get a light snack. What kind of a moron hits somebody on a bicycle and then just leaves the scene? Fortunately, the person on the bike, this guy in his mid-20s, was not seriously hurt. I mean, he's expected to survive. Beyond that, I don't know. I mean, he could have some broken legs, he could have head injuries, but he's going to be okay. So I say that's not seriously hurt into that context. But this guy drives to a friggin' fast food restaurant. I'm telling you, it's a whacked out world we live in. We're talking right now with Chris Davis. He's with the Davis Law Group and is very much involved with a lot of these bicycle accidents. And there's just been a slew of these things lately. He sent a report out. I was looking at this, and when you see it all at once, it really hits you between the eyes. These are bicycle collisions that have taken place since June 1st, right? So what are we talking about? 9 weeks? 49-year-old guy in Kirkland, killed. This was the one on Juanita Drive. Killed by an 18-year-old driving a truck. We have the Mike Wang, hit-and-run driver. This was the bicyclist that was killed down there on Dexter. The SUV fled the scene. We still don't know who was involved with that one. We have the 71-year-old guy who was riding his bike when 3 yahoos were rolling by in their car and pushed him, and he hit the ground. He suffered some really significant injuries. We have another 70-year-old bicyclist who died today. This was in Renton. And then the one that I just told you about, where the guy that hit him went to the fast food restaurant. Chris Davis, thanks for being here this afternoon. Appreciate it.
Hi, Ken. Thanks.
What the hell's going on?
Well, you would think that, with the recent rash of these incidences occurring, there might be an epidemic. And I have to tell you, I've been doing this, handling bicycle accident cases for over 18 years now. And I have to tell you that just looking in the last few years, there has been an uptick in these types of cases that we see, at least in my practice.
Well, here's the irony. Earlier this week, we talked with the president of the Cascade Bicycle Association. It was yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I asked her, I said, is it, because I got the sense that there's more and more of these things happening. I said, is it because that there are more cyclists on the road? Is it because there's a greater level of animosity with the motorists? I mean, how would you hold, what would be accountable for all the accidents we've seen? And I hesitate to sometimes call them accidents.
Yeah, it's a combination of factors. Number one, yes, we do see more cyclists on the road, especially when various cities, including the city of Seattle, encourages more people to use their bicycles. More public resources are being devoted to bicyclists. For instance, more pathways, outfitting our roadways to be bicycle friendly. And so just by virtue of the fact that there's more cyclists on the road, you're going to see more altercations and more incidences with motorists. And I think that also helps to create more frustration on the part of motorists. And in many of the cases that we see, the motorist deliberately takes their frustration out on the bicyclist, or takes chances while driving around the bicyclist. Crowding the bicyclist or not giving the bicyclist more room. But I don't want to portray it as only the people who drive cars, because we also see just as many cases involving bicyclists who either are not aware of the rules of the road or intentionally ignore them by darting in and out of vehicles and not obeying all of the traffic laws that exist.
The other thread that I would like to pick at is we're seeing more hit and runs as well. I cannot comprehend how someone could hit someone on a bicycle and then just take off. And yet we have the case, with Mike Wang, and we have the case that I just described where this doofus went to the fast food restaurant. No drugs or alcohol involved at 2 a.m., by the way, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yes, and I'm seeing more of that. And as an attorney, it certainly, raises the consciousness of guilt factor, because most people, virtually all drivers are going to know when they hit a bicyclist. And the fact that they take off tells me then as an attorney that they knew that they did something wrong to cause that incident. Now,
you say you've been involved with a lot of legal proceedings involving motorists and bicycles. Do you find that, A, prosecution is adequate, and B, the civil process is adequate?
That's a good question. In today's economic climate, you're not going to see as many resources devoted to these incidences by the prosecutor, by the state, or a municipality, unless the injuries are pretty severe or unless the incident is pretty severe. On the civil side, that's usually, I would say more than 90% of these cases, the only redress that an injured bicyclist may have would be on the civil side. And then you run into issues about, whether the driver has insurance or adequate insurance, because oftentimes when you've got a bicyclist who's been hit by a car, the medical bills are pretty steep. And so we see a lot of cases where there's no insurance or not enough insurance, and the bicyclist is left with thousands of dollars in medical bills to pay.
So with the cases that are so high profile, I would imagine that, the ones that don't make it to the newspaper or the evening news or on news radio, I would imagine that there's a lot of backlog of those types of cases that we just don't know about.
Absolutely, and I would also highlight the fact that many of these cases, there is no criminal prosecution because the driver has taken off, or because there's a lack of witnesses, or the injuries are so severe that the bicyclist is knocked out, knocked unconscious. And so from that perspective, it can be very difficult for a prosecutor to successfully prosecute the driver, because under the law, both the driver and the cyclist have relative duties to act carefully and mind themselves and avoid the other. So it's not just a one-sided thing in many of these cases.
Yeah. All right, Chris Davis with the Davis Law Group. Very much appreciate you taking a moment here to talk with us today. Appreciate the perspective you brought.
Thanks, Ken.
All right, good talking with you. In here, I want to ask you this, and I think I'm right on the cusp of changing my mind about something. But let me give you the phone numbers. 206-421-1000 is the local, and the toll-free number is 877-397-KOMO. That's 877-397-5666. Do you think we have acted prematurely in urging more people to get on their bikes and ride in the area here on city streets? Have we kind of put forth a false sense of you'll be okay? We'll talk about this and something surprising in a moment.